and
Being recorded by the host.
she's a wordsmith and a ghostwriter. I always tempted to say a ghostwriter, and I love her poems because of all the places that they are not afraid to go. And so I am going to hand over to her very shortly, just to give you a bit of an idea of the program. We're going to have a reading, a short question and answer session, a 5-minute break, and then we'll have an open mic, and we hope that you read to us in that time. And I've brought a poem by another fearless poet, Theodore Roethke, the American. This is a short little poem called Wish for a Young Wife. My lizard, my lively writher, may your limbs never wither. May the eyes in your face survive the green ice of envy's mean gaze. May you live out your life without hate, without grief, and your hair ever blaze in the sun, when I am undone, when I am no one. Now, please welcome Marie. Please give her a hand.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to the Red Wheelbarrow. And thank you very much for giving me an audience. So it was short notice, so I decided to read some poems from some of my favorite poets, and then just a short collection of my own poetry. So I hope you enjoy this. I'll start with Anne Sexton. I'll read from her book Mercies. The poem is called Her Kind. Her kind. I have gone out a possessed witch, haunting the black air, braver at night, dreaming evil. I have done my hitch over the plain houses, light by light, lonely thing, 12-fingered, out of mind. A woman like that is not a woman quite. I have been her kind. I have found the warm caves in the woods, filled them with skillets, carvings, shelves, closets, silks, innumerable goods, fixed the suppers for the worms and the elves, whining, rearranging the disaligned. A woman like that is misunderstood. I have been her kind. I have ridden in your cart, driver, waved my nude arms at villagers going by, learning the last bright roots, survivor where your flames still bite my thigh and my ribs crack where your wheels wind. A woman like that is not ashamed to die. I have been her kind. And then another favorite poet of mine, or author, is Anne Carson. And I really loved her glass essay, Glass and God. So towards the end of the essays, she has these short snippets, short talks, just like fragments of thoughts. And I find them really inspirational and different. For example, the one on Van Gogh. The reason I drink is to understand the yellow sky, the great yellow sky, said Van Gogh. When he looked at the world, he saw the nails that attach colors to things, and he saw that the nails were in pain. And another thought on rain. It was blacker than olives the night I left. As I ran past the palaces, oddly joyful, it began to rain. What a notion it is, after all, these small shapes. I would get lost counting them. Who first thought of it? How did he describe it to the others? Out on the sea, it is raining too. It beats on no one. And then Alejandra Pizarnik from Extracting the Stone of Madness. The one poem is called Poem for a Father. And it was then, with a cold, dead tongue in his mouth, that he sang the song they wouldn't let him sing in this world of obscene gardens and shadows that approached inopportunely to remind him of songs from his younger days. When he couldn't sing the song he wanted to sing, the song they wouldn't let him sing, except with his absent blue eyes, with his absent mouth, with his absent voice. Then from the highest tower of absence, his song echoed in the opacity of hidden things in a silent expanse, filled with shifting crevices, like the words I write. Okay. I had the privilege of being mentored by Prof. Kobus Moorman during my studies, and it was one of the most exceptional teaching experiences that I've ever had. So I'd like to read a poem in gratitude for what he taught me. It's from his latest anthology, The Mountain Behind the House. He does not know. He does not know what he is doing or why he is doing it. Why it is so early where he is and so late where he is not. Why the sky where he is so big and so limited at the same time. Why there are so many mountains, or why there are any mountains at all. He does not know the answers to any of the questions anymore. He is no longer able to think of even the simplest things. Where to pay for water, for example, or how to buy time. Okay, please stop me if you want me to reread something. And then I had some amazing fellow students during my studies, and I'd like to read one of them, one of their poems. It's called Omi se troukussie by Andrea Peterson. Omi had 4 daughters, Sissy, Rola, Helena, and Melanie. When Sissy turned 14, she started preparing a troukussie for each of her daughters. Omi believed that a mother's worth was measured by how well she prepared for the future. 2. When Omi found my mother's birth control hidden in her drawer, she looked at her and said, "Now you must marry him." 3 months later, my mother was walking down the aisle in a frilly dress chosen by my grandmother. Omi refused her a veil. Later, when the dress had been removed, Omi handed her the troukussie she had been preparing since my mother turned 14. 7 sets of bedding, each with their own intricate embroidery, pink and white porcelain cups and saucers, teaspoons from Taniki and her gold wedding rings. 3. Each item came with its own set of rules. Use the porcelain cups when guests come over. Remember to clean my wedding rings. Forgive. The teaspoons are from Taniki Ruela. Take care of them. Even if he comes home tasting like another woman's spit, forgive. Change your bedding at least once a week and forgive. If you're on the floor being kicked until you can't feel your ribs, forgive. If your daughter comes to you while you're in the kitchen making briedi and says her father visits her late at night, forgive. When another woman's child has his nose and his mouth and his dark curly hair, forgive. Jy's 'n getroude vrou nou, Rola. Luister na mama. Okay, so I'll move on to some of my own poetry. This is an older poem of mine, which I wrote a few years ago. Ragdoll. Remove her button eyes and place them in the button bottle to dissolve into blindness. Lift her limp left arm, the one above the torn seam, and unhook stitches one by one until the gap vomits stuffing, forcing each limb inside out with scissor-pressured precision. Let the eyeless face see the intestine rags. Shuffle her limbs into rawness, fix her, stitch each hole, re-stitch until nothing shows, fix the gaps, take the throat with both hands, shroud the hole at the heart, force the naked feet into shape, scour the legs, stitch up the seam to arm and knot the yarn, be firm. So 2 new buttons for eyes. Now hold your fixed doll up and with your fingers squeeze her hips in, out, in, out. Pinch the different buttons under your thumbs. Grimace the mouth. Okay, so this is from my latest project called The Secret Life of Doors. Some of you may have heard some of the poems previously, so I apologize. Alarm. Slowly the body becomes aware of aching and your eyes refuse to see. You grab the dreams from the night and wrestle them into the day. You shuffle muddled words until they meet the horror of the baby dressing paper dolls and fixing the feathers of the dead bird and cleaning her swollen navel in the bathtub before wrapping her lifeline cord in foil. Some survival hovers, and a sinister silence says the world died outside. Like the day when your cousin's soot-blackened hand said no one must know. You try to capture what the body sees before the eyes interpret the bed. Tankas, 2 tankas. Topic 1. When an olive tree does not bear fruit in the 5th year, it is a sign to walk away. As with love, the fruit comes when forsaken. Topic 2. It's so quiet here that even the falling leaves become intruders. The surface of the river rings out for steadying breath. The day after I killed myself. The day after I killed myself, the neighbor still kissed his wife on the cheek before he left for work. Your car still had the smell of spilled milk on the back seat from the day when all my questions arrived. Mother still sat solidly in her chair with the new crochet pattern she tried to copy. The baker on the corner of the next street still closed his doors at noon and motionlessly stared at the sky. The blue and white Delft your mother inherited still glared at me from behind the locked glass panels of the cabinet I never wanted. The day after I killed myself, the clock which father brought home from the place we never asked about still ticked the seconds like mother's anxious breath. The silent cavalier still laughed behind his curled moustache and elaborate costume with his belittling gaze. The bathtub still collected messages. The entrance hall was still dormant. The rats still whispered. The house was still dark and the bathroom clammy and the toilet seat still stained. The day after I killed myself, you still walked with someone else's feet, leaning against the wind. The other women still floated in the gloom. The shower head was still high enough for the way your shoulders were shaking. The hand still scratched at the flesh under a flaking skin. The skeleton still hung from the trees in the driveway. No one left and no one came. And the wounded eye was still me behind the door. The day after I killed myself, I left the bed on the pavement like a whore. Moments. 1. There is a weightless comfort in not moving, hands holding what is lost for a moment longer until the shifting settles. 2. What are the phases of love spells? When he stops stroking the curve of her thighs, or when she forgets smiling? 3. He says he cannot eat the baby tomatoes. He hears the worms inside them. She watches the wriggling creatures emerge under taut skin. 4. Through the window she gawks at him, fingers snared on glass. He doesn't know this. 5. The day time left, she killed him in the snow she had never seen before. He was writing poetry on her breasts. The heart makes no noise when it cracks. 6. Mother takes out her loaded gun and shoots across the room at everyone with her swollen tongue. Mother does not let her move. Spilled milk. There is a basket full of bottled memories behind the blue bedroom door, like the empty milk bottles of her childhood that she used to carry to the rusty gate beside the silence of the apprehensive roses who were learning how not to die. When she woke up in the morning, she would strain her ears to hear the milkman's clanking of the empty glass exchange. And in the time lapse following his footsteps on the gravel, she would run to collect the red plastic basket in the cold and carefully open the first bottle foil top so that it made a small symmetric hole from her fingerprint, because she knew when they cracked, they would become useless. And the milk would be like the unwanted gooseberry bush in the backyard where a hollow father always went to whistle alone. She still collects the memories, just to know that her face had less weather on it then. How's the time? Still okay? Okay. So,
Absolutely.
great. Thanks, Jacques. Almost through. Terminate. She is preoccupied with death, but the doctors persuade her not to be. Knife wounds bleed, if the knife is sharp enough to penetrate the layers of flesh, and then it leaves a mess. It also reeks after a few days, if she gets found. Drowning takes time. And what if the ocean spits her out, or if the water does not freeze her breath? Gas requires a planned effort. Whether it's with the oven or the exhaust pipe in the dark garage, the risk of failure always remains. Swallowing a handful of pills, she doesn't know yet. Jumping from a building gives too much time to reconsider after it's too late. The noose is too romanticized and leaves a bloated expression behind. Guns are difficult to get and have too many portals of entry. The mouth, the fold where the neck holds up the chin, the temples, or straight into the third eye that detects too much. And then the risk of missing the artery remains. A planned vehicle accident or a pedestrian accident, any form of movement on impact, a tactical method of an accident may always backfire. Sleep, and never again open the eyes. Like her son said when she asked him how he sleeps so much, and he replied that he just keeps his eyes closed. Just sleep and pretend not to wake up. And if it fails, run the bath water and fetch the toaster. So this poem was written in Italy while I was visiting my partner. It's called Blood, Blades, and Jesus. Too much blood was lost. When they stitched my skin, Jesus was in the room, and the nails through his palm leaked no blood. Outside, the snow collapsed on the building that looked like a forgotten Russian prison. This morning, I felt like a forgotten prisoner while trying to avoid looking at the undone skin. Now Jesus mutely hangs his head on this white wall of this room, and the leaves of the tree outside remain knife blades. And then a new poem that's still very much in its purge draft form. It's called On Leaving. It was written in December. She puts the road map away and closes the bird book with the wine glass stains. She folds his shirts again, neatly and precisely with awareness, and then puts them in the drawer that doesn't slide smoothly. She dries his toothbrush, makes sure that the toothpaste is closed properly, and washes away his scent from the laundry. She replaces the tablecloth with the delicate one, the one with the lace trimmings that are too fragile to bear food stains and coffee spills. She rearranges the hiking boots, aligning hers with his, without removing the dirt from the soles. She empties the dregs from the half-drunken bottles and crams all the leftover vegetables into a pot to stew into some wholeness. Then she seats herself at the desk and pretends to read the foreign news with him. But instead, the news just stretches the gap between their worlds and highlights other things. She opens a new notebook, the one he gave her last year before she hurt herself and had to write with the wrong hand. She pours out her soul. She thinks of the journey from here to there and there to here, and how she will have to learn to wait. Okay, so may I end with my absolutely favorite poem by Ocean Vuong. And
Let's
if you
hear
don't
it.
know Ocean Vuong, please find him. He is an incredible poet. It's from his book Night Sky with Exit Wounds, which I think was his first publication. It won the T.S. Eliot Prize as well. Someday I'll love Ocean Vuong. Ocean, don't be afraid. The end of the road is so far ahead, it is already behind us. Don't worry, your father is only your father until one of you forgets. Like how the spine won't remember its wings, no matter how many times our knees kiss the pavement. Ocean, are you listening? The most beautiful part of your body is wherever your mother's shadow falls. Here's the house with childhood whittled down to a single red tripwire. Don't worry, just call it horizon and you'll never reach it. Here's today. Jump. I promise it's not a lifeboat. Here's the man whose arms are wide enough to gather your leaving, and here the moment just after the lights go out when you can still see the faint torch between his legs. How you use it again and again to find your own hands. You asked for a second chance and are given a mouth to empty out of. Don't be afraid. The gunfire is only the sound of people trying to live a little longer and failing. Ocean, ocean, get up. The most beautiful part of your body is where it's headed. And remember, loneliness is still time spent with the world. Here's the room with everyone in it. Your dead friends passing through you like wind through a wind chime. Here's a desk with the here's the desk with a gimp leg and a brick to make it last. Yes, here's a room so warm and blood close. I swear you will wake and mistake these walls for skin. How exquisite. That's it. Jock?
Can we please have a hand for Marie after such a beautiful reading?
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to hear your voice again. It's been, yeah, it's been a while, and it takes me back to the time when we were, when we were together in a room as we were and as we soon will be again from time to time. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure. Thank you for being here tonight, everyone. I appreciate your presence.
Does anyone have a question? I think what I'll do, I'll hand over to Nondwe to sort of move through the space and and say whose hand she sees.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mari. I really enjoyed that. That was really satisfying. Could you please, just for me, read The Day After I Killed Myself? I loved that poem.
Where's the book?
Satisfaction.
Okay. Let's find it here. Oh, sorry. I'll find it now. Okay. The day after I killed myself. The day after I killed myself, the neighbor still kissed his wife on the cheek before he left for work. Your car still had the smell of spilled milk on the back seat from the day when all my questions arrived. Mother still sat solidly in her chair with the new crochet pattern she tried to copy. The baker on the corner of the next street still closed his doors at noon and motionlessly stared at the sky. Sorry, it brings back. The blue and white Delft your mother inherited still glared at me from behind the locked glass panels of the cabinet I never wanted. The day after I killed myself, the clock which father brought home from the place we never asked about still ticked the seconds like mother's anxious breath. The silent cavalier still laughed behind his curled moustache and elaborate costume with his belittling gaze. The bathtub still collected messages. The entrance hall was still dormant. The rats still whispered. The house was still dark and the bathroom clammy and the toilet seat still stained. The day after I killed myself, you still walked with someone else's feet, leaning against the wind. The other women still floated in the gloom. The shower head was still high enough for the way your shoulders were shaking. The hands still scratched at the flesh under a flaking skin. The skeleton still hung from the trees in the driveway. No one left and no one came, and the wounded eye was still me behind the door. The day after I killed myself, I left the bed on the pavement like a whore.
Thank you so much for that. I'm sorry that it still brings back memories, but that poem is, for me at least, it moves me in so many different ways. And
And that's
just
good. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you, Nordle.
life.
I hope my poetry touches hearts.
It-
That's why I write.
Is there anybody with a question, comment? Jacques, the floor is yours.
Okay.
I'm very moved by the way and fascinated by the way that your poems are made up of images, and they are very clear images and they speak to me, but the way they are, it's as if we have to work out how they're linked to each other. It's as if we're seeing fragments of a story and the detail. No, let me put it this way. I'm fascinated by what you leave out. I'm fascinated. And is that something that you think about, or is it something, because it leaves us with this, but it certainly leaves me with this mystery of having to piece together what it is that is happening.
I think, thank you for that question, Jacques. I'm not good with answering questions, but I'll try my best. I think when I started writing poetry, I had to hide what I was trying to say. I couldn't, because of circumstances, I couldn't express myself with people knowing or with others knowing what I'm actually trying to say. And I think that just evolved over the years. But I have to give most of the credit to Cobus Moorman, because when you present a poem to him, and most of my fellow students here or people who've been through his hands will know that you give a poem to him, which is your purge and your draft, and then he tells you, take this out, cut, delete, take it away. So then you minimize everything down to the bare essentials. And he made us very aware of that practice. And it's become a habit now that every time when I write, even tonight when I was reading the poem that I wrote in December last year, as I was reading it again tonight, I realized, okay, these words are redundant. They need to go. So I think it just becomes a habit after a while. You try to hide what you actually want to say, and you rather describe the essential things like the image. Does that answer you, Jacques?
Okay.
Yes, I think it does. You hide what you're trying to say, but you also not hiding what you it's as if you're hiding it in plain sight in a way. Or
Exactly. See, yes, sorry. Didn't tell him. I try. I don't think I try deliberately. I think it just happens automatically. I suppose that's the mystery of poetry. Don't we all do that as poets?
I think some of us just say everything.
It's good for us to have different voices.
Mm.
Thank you, Jacques, for that question. Mari, you have some comments in the chat from David. He says, thanks, Mari. Such a wonderful selection from other poets, beautifully read. And your own poems, so brilliant and provoking and profound. They linger long after you have finished reading them. And from
Indeed.
Annette says, thank you.
Wow.
Are there any other comments, questions for Mari in the room? Questions, comments, anything? Going once, going twice, going, go. You have a few more comments in the chat from Stuart. He says, thank you, Mari. Lovely to hear you again. Rachel, such an amazing woman. Love you, my friend. All those comments are beautiful and welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you
Can we
enjoyed.
give Mari one last round of applause?
Can I make an announcement before